Hey guys, let's talk about Richey Edwards. Richey James, or Richey Manic, was a Welsh musician who was the lyricist and rhythm guitarist of the alternative rock band Manic Street Preachers. Richard James Richey Edwards was born on December 22, 1967. He was born and raised in Blackwood, Wales, to Graham and Sherry Edwards. He had one younger sister, Rachel, born in 1969, with whom he was close. He attended Oakdale Comprehensive School. From 1986 to 1989, he attended University of Wales, Swansea, and graduated with a degree in political history. The Edwards family lived in Blackwood. He met Nicky Wire, Sean Moore, and James Dean Bradfield at Oakdale Comprehensive School. He was initially a driver and roadie for Manic Street Preachers. He was accepted as the band's main spokesman and fourth member in 1989. He showed little musical talent. His real contribution to the band was in their lyrics and design. He frequently mimed playing the guitar during early live performances and accordingly only played on 2 songs during the Manic Street Preachers' studio career, but was, along with bassist Nicky Wire, principal lyricist. He is said to have written approximately 80% of the lyrics on their third album, The Holy Bible. Both are credited on all songs written before his disappearance, with Richey receiving sole credit on 3 tracks from the 1996 album Everything Must Go, and co-writing credits on another 2. Despite Richey's lack of musical input, he contributed to their overall musical direction, and according to the rest of the band, on the Everything Must Go DVD, he played a leading role in deciding the band's sound. He expressed a desire to create a concept album described as Pantera meets Nine Inch Nails meets Screamadelica. Lead guitarist and vocalist James Dean Bradfield later expressed doubt over whether the band would have produced such an album. Quote, "I was worried that as chief tunesmith in the band, I wasn't actually going to be able to write things that he would have liked. There would have been an impasse in the band, for the first time born out of taste." Unquote. Richey had severe depression and was open about it in interviews. He self-harmed, mainly through stubbing cigarettes on his arms and cutting himself. Quote, "When I cut myself, I feel so much better. All the little things that might have been annoying me suddenly seem so trivial because I'm concentrating on the pain. I'm not a person who can scream and shout, so this is my only outlet. It's all done very logically." Unquote. On May 15, 1991, after a gig at the Norwich Arts Centre, NME journalist Steve Lamacq questioned how serious Richey was about his art. He responded by carving the words, "For real," the number 4 and real, into his forearm with a razor blade. The injury required 18 stitches. He had insomnia and used alcohol to help himself sleep at night. Before the release of the Holy Bible in 1994, he checked into Whitchurch Hospital and later the Priory Hospital, missing out on some of the promotional work for the album and forcing the band to appear as a 3-piece at the Reading Festival and Tea in the Park. Following his release from the Priory in September, Manic Street Preachers toured Europe with Suede and Therapy for what would be the last time. Richey's final live appearance was at the London Astoria on December 21, 1994. The concert ended with the band smashing their equipment and damaging the lighting system, prompted by Richey's violent destruction of his guitar towards the end of Set Closer, You Love Us. On January 23, 1995, Richey gave his last interview to Japanese music magazine, Music Life. Richey disappeared on February 1, 1995. On the day when he and Bradfield were due to fly to the United States on a promotional tour of the Holy Bible. In the 2 weeks before his disappearance, Richey withdrew £200 a day from his bank account, which totaled £2,800 by the day of the scheduled flight. It is not known if he intended to spend the cash during the U.S. tour or whether a part of it was to pay for a desk that he had ordered from a shop in Cardiff. There is no record of the desk having been paid for. According to M.F. Forrest, as quoted in a version of Reason, quote, "The night before he disappeared, Richey gave a friend a book called Novel with Cocaine, instructing her to read the introduction, which details the author staying in a mental asylum before vanishing," unquote. Whilst staying at the Embassy Hotel in Bayswater Road, London, according to Rob Jovanovic's biography, He removed some books and videos from his bag. Among them was a copy of the play Equus. He placed them in a box with a note that said, quote, "I love you," unquote, wrapped the box like a birthday present and decorated it with collages, literary quotations, including a picture of a Germanic-looking house and Bugs Bunny. The package was addressed to Richey's on-off girlfriend, Jo, whom he met some years prior, although they had split a few weeks earlier. Richey's sister, Rachel, contributing to an article about Richey's final lyrics by Guy Mankowski, proposed that Sylvia Plath's poem Tulips summed up everything he thought at the time he went. She added, quote, "Why do I know this? Because he told me. He kept a copy of it, and he asked for it to be read at his funeral," unquote. Rachel Edwards said, quote, "His thoughts must have been dominated by this poem, the themes and messages," unquote. The poem is generally considered to depict the tension between the speaker's desire for the simplicity of death and the tulip's encouragement towards life. The next morning, Richey collected his wallet, car keys, some Prozac, and his passport. He reportedly checked out of the hotel at 7 a.m., leaving his toiletries, packed suitcase, and some of his Prozac. He then drove to his flat in Cardiff, leaving behind his passport, his Prozac, and the Severn Bridge toll booth receipt. In the 2 weeks that followed, Richey was apparently spotted in the Newport passport office and at Newport bus station by a fan who was unaware that he was missing. The fan was reported to have discussed a mutual friend, Laurie Fiddler, before Richey departed. On February 7th, a taxi driver from Newport supposedly picked up Richey from the King's Hotel and drove him around the valleys, including Richey's hometown of Blackwood. The driver reported that the passenger had spoken in a Cockney accent, which occasionally slipped into a Welsh one, and that he had asked if he could lie down on the back seat. Eventually they reached Blackwood and the bus station, but the passenger reportedly said, quote, "This is not the place," unquote, and asked to be taken to Pontypool railway station. It was later ascertained, according to Jovanovic's account, that Pontypool did not have a telephone. The passenger got out of the Severn View service station near Aust, South Gloucestershire, and paid the £68 fare in cash. On February 14th, Richey's Vauxhall Cavalier received a parking ticket at the Severn View service station, and on February 17th, the vehicle was reported as abandoned. Police discovered the battery to be dead, with evidence that the car had been lived in. The car also had photos he had taken of his family days prior. Due to the service station's proximity to the Severn Bridge, a known suicide site, it was widely believed that Richey had jumped from the bridge. Many people who knew Richey, however, have said that he was never the type to contemplate suicide, and he himself was quoted in 1994 as saying, quote, "In terms of the S word, that does not enter my mind, and it never has done in terms of an attempt. Because I am stronger than that. I might be a weak person, but I can take pain," unquote. Since then, Richey has reportedly been spotted in a market in Goa, India, and on the islands of Fuerteventura and Lanzarote. There have been other alleged sightings of Richey, especially in the years immediately following his disappearance. However, none of these have proved conclusive, and none has been confirmed by investigators. In 2018, it was revealed that the bridge's toll receipt was time-stamped, with a 24-hour clock, meaning he would have crossed the bridge at 2:55 a.m. rather than 2:55 p.m., as previously thought for 23 years. The investigation itself has received criticism. In his 1999 book, Everything, a Book About Manic Street Preachers, Simon Price states that aspects of the investigation were, quote, "far from satisfactory," unquote. He asserts the police may have not taken Richey's mental state into account when prioritizing his disappearance, and also records Richey's sister Rachel as having, quote, "hid out at police handling," unquote, after CCTV footage was analyzed 2 years after Richey vanished. Price records a member of the investigation team as stating, quote, "that the idea that you could identify somebody from that is arrant nonsense," unquote. While his family had the option of declaring him legally dead from 2002 onwards, they chose not to for many years, and his status remained open as a missing person until November 23, 2008, when he became officially presumed dead. As well as an interest in music, Richey displayed a love for literature. He chose many of the quotes that appear in Manic's record sleeves, and would often refer to writers and poets during interviews. This interest in literature has remained integral to the band's music and lyrics. Albert Camus, Philip Larkin, Yukio Mishima, Fyodor Dostoevsky, and Arthur Rimbaud are known to have been among his favorite authors. In a dressing room interview, he also mentioned admiration for Primo Levi. Edwards' lyrics have often been of a highly poetic nature, and at times they reflected his knowledge of political history. Hopefully someday we'll find out what happened to Richey Edwards.